So a little bit about me. My name is Serena Mitchell. I'm currently the manager of talent acquisition at San Francisco 49ers. And during my time there, I come in contact with a lot of candidates, and right now is internship season. And what really hurts me to my core is that, people have to decline opportunities because they can't afford to move. And being from a small state, I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, and being from there, we don't have any professional sports teams or even many large corporations. So it was very hard for us to gain experience in state. So we had to go, travel. And I totally understand where people are coming from. And I knew I had to do something. I didn't know what I could do. I knew I couldn't pay for everybody, but I'm like, if I can just help one person, then, I'll be happy, because I don't want anybody's reasoning for not being able to further their career and further their education or internship experience to be based off money, based off their, whatever random factor. So I did go to Alexis, and she was willing to do the grant with me. And I went to Tim, and he was, like, yes, of course, whatever you need, promotion, I'm here. So super excited for you guys to learn more about it. Hear from some great women on the panel that are going to talk about their sports experiences, and hopefully that can help you decide maybe what area you want to go. Do you want to do MBA, or you want to do college, or foundation, or nonprofit, or do you want to come to the NFL like me, or do you want to go to a club? So I want this conversation to be very interactive. If you have questions, please post them in the chat, and I have a question and answer period later where we will answer those.
Thank you, Serena. So I'm super excited. I will be the first to admit I'm a marketing girl. I am familiar with sports as it relates to sponsorships and the brand side of those things, but I do not work on the sports side day to day. So I'm here to ask all the questions, be really curious, and hopefully make sure that you all get the information that you need from these wonderful panelists. So we'll start by just introducing our panelists, because we have a panel of heavy hitters. This is not in any particular order, completely alphabetical, but we'll start with Alexia Grevious. She was recently named Sports Business Journal's New Voices Under 30. She's a force to be reckoned with, and at only 29, she's the Director of Marketing Communications at Magic Johnson Enterprises. Prior to working at Magic Johnson Enterprises, Alexia held positions with the Washington football team and the NCAA. She also had several internships with the Colts, Falcons, and the Clemson University football team. So welcome, Alexia. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. Sorry, y'all. I'm excited, clearly. Moving on to Brooklyn McDaniels. So Brooklyn was formerly a sponsorship and partnership coordinator for the NFL, and she has very recently started a new position in marketing with TikTok. So we're super excited to talk to her about that. Brooklyn is obviously a rising talent. She describes herself as a small town girl with a big city personality, and she was front office sports as Rising 25. And she was actually one of 2,000 applicants selected for, there were 6 out of 2,000 selected for the NFL's rotational program. So we're going to get into all of that as well and talk to her about how she did that too. Next, we have Dr. Lacey Carmen Johnson. She's currently the manager of basketball advancement for the Toronto Raptors. She's responsible for developing experiences for players to grow their personal and professional skills and maximize off-court opportunities for them. So she has over a decade of experience as a professor, an associate director, a coach. She's a wealth of knowledge about athletics in general, student athlete development, and we're excited to tap into to her knowledge there. We also have Dr. Ashley Baker, who is currently the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Michigan State, where she facilitates the implementation of programs focused on student athlete, diversity, inclusion, and community outreach. In April of 2015, Dr. Baker founded Team Baker Education and Sports Strategies, and shortly after, in 2016, organized the Women in Sports Forum. The forum brings accomplished women in sports together for a series of workshops and educational sessions to help each other build community and navigate their careers in a male-dominated industry. So super excited to get into that. And then last but not least, we have Serena. I know Serena already introduced herself, but I'm very excited to talk to her about her transition into sports, because while she is a master of talent acquisition and HR, and she's worked in that arena in a bunch of different industries and capacities, she's fairly new to the sports landscape. So I think she'll have good perspective for anyone that's looking to pivot into sports, doesn't currently work in sports. So I think she'll be a wealth of knowledge in that regard. So those are our panelists. I'm super excited to jump into it. But before we do, I just want to give the panelists an opportunity to say, hey, anybody has anything to say before we kick off the conversation, feel free to do so.
Just want to say hello, good evening. Thank you guys for joining and being so punctual and timely, and just really excited to get to know you guys and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for the introductions, Alexis. You really hyped us up and made us feel good, I know. So
because y'all are bomb.
You are too. We haven't even bragged on you yet. So they don't even know. But if you're interested in marketing, I'll talk to Alexis.
Yes. Well, okay. So let's jump into it, because I think one of the biggest things that on the outside looking in, and I mean, maybe it's like this on the inside, I don't know, but working in sports seems super aspirational. You know, you see all of these TV shows about people working in sports in their power suits and, you know, being a sports agent and working with teams. And you all are Black women working in sports. So can you take a second to just talk to us about, like, do you ever have those moments where you wake up and you're like, wow, I'm really doing what I dreamed of doing? Or are you guys just completely jaded by it all now?
I can go ahead and go. So for me being, you know, relatively new to sports, I didn't hate my last company. I came from media, so television and radio, and I didn't hate my last job, but I knew that like the next company that I worked for, I knew I wanted it to be a huge company and I wanted to make a difference, especially in the capacity of what I do. I mean, I give people opportunities to work at a company, their dream company. And I also respect the fact that, you know, a lot of times people haven't spoken to anybody from a sports organization before. And I'm the first person they come in contact with. And I hold that to very high regard. So no, I'm actually not jaded. Like I still get excited when I talk to people, and it still gives me a rise whenever like I give an offer and I'm like, I just changed somebody's life or like gave them their dream. And, you know, whenever I speak at college fairs or do things like this, like it's not always people that look like me in the audience. So I love the fact that they see me, the person that runs the talent department, the person that they have to come through is able to be in this position of power, and that the 49ers, you know, trusted a young Black woman to come in here and basically here's our jobs. Please hire us people to come here. We trust you. So no, I do not take lightly what I do.
I'm with Serena. Oh, go ahead, Alexia, go ahead for it. I was gonna say, I'm with Serena. I 100%, I think day to day, you know, when I'm at my desk and I'm answering emails and I'm on Zooms, like, you know, during that, I think we all get jaded in that type of stuff. Just, you know, just all the, you know, the stress and the, you know, lethargy from being in Zoom all day. But I think for me, what really makes me say like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. Working in sponsorship at the NFL, we were in charge of like a lot of the commercials that will run during games, you know, during the season. And so like, for me, seeing something that I was able to organize with one of my partners, like Gatorade or Bud Light, seeing that run like in game while I'm watching like the Browns play the 49ers, like to me, that's like, just thinking that it wouldn't be there if I didn't do my job correctly, that for me is what like really makes me want to pat myself on the back and, you know, makes me proud. But I think day to day, you know, when we're not at All-Star Weekend or we're not at, you know, Pro Bowl, I think it feels pretty normal just because it's your job. And at the end of the day, it's like a lot of, you know, tasks that aren't always fun. But I think when we are at those events or when I see something that I know that I directly impacted, I really feel like amazed that I'm able to do that and call it work, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, being like, I always knew I wanted to work in sports and kind of started fairly early. My dad had kind of touched sports like growing up, so I'd always been around it. But as you know, kind of piggyback off of what Brooklyn said, it's easy every day to get caught up in like what your actual job is. But then like today, like Mr. Johnson is promoting his docuseries that's coming out on Apple TV Plus, and we did a pre-taped interview with GMA, with Robin Roberts, and they surprised a school in Brooklyn who centers their entire curriculum around the business of sports. Excuse me, not Brooklyn, Bronx, called Earl Monroe Renaissance High School. And the students were so excited. Like like dumbfounded, didn't even know how to get their questions out, just shocked and all. And I feel like when I get to be a part of those moments is when I realize like, this is cool. And like just having that ability to really like affect someone's life, or, you know, to your point, just being able to give them an experience they would not normally have. That's always really nice to be a part of.
So sports was honestly never really the dream for me. I was going to be a medical doctor, ended up being a academic doctor, which is completely fine, even though my son reminds me often that I am not his doctor. But I I love what I do. I have a huge sense of gratitude for the space that I get to be in, because a lot of people don't have the opportunity. When I'm in the stands and I get to see the fans and like how excited they are, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so normal for me. It's so normal for my children, but this might be the only professional game that some of these people get to go to. So to provide the experience for them, to work behind the scenes with the players. When I have friends who send me pictures from a player that I'm in the background somewhere that they spotted me and they're like, oh yeah, you're over here in the corner. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's kind of cool to have the opportunity to do that. So I'm definitely grateful. I couldn't imagine my life without sports now, so many years in, but I also know that like I could also do this work in another space outside of sports as well. So I lean on those transferable skills in case one day I end up making a move.
I'm kind of in line with what Lacey said. I'm extremely grateful for the experiences I've been able to have in this industry. I don't take them for granted. We get to do some really cool things, right? When I get to travel with teams and go to all these different stadiums and arenas and work with all of these different people, especially within the work that I do, you know, my job and the work that I do touches all across our department. And my background has always been working with student athletes. So I get to see the success, go to graduation, see all these amazing things. And similar to what Lacey said, you know, I stand on the sideline sometimes and I look around at our stadium. I'm like, wow, like, you know, there are all different types of people here. Some here for the first time, some come every game, but it's this experience that they're getting that's so different from maybe what my day-to-day is. And I don't take for granted that we get to create those type of experiences for people. But I also will say, I didn't necessarily set out to work in, like I knew I wanted to work in sports. I didn't know what I wanted to do, particularly because I didn't see people who looked like me in sports. So I wasn't able to really connect right away with, I could do that. I could be in these spaces. But now that I am, you know, again, I don't take it for granted. And I really feel that I have an obligation to make sure that we create spaces and opportunities for more people who want to do this work in our industry to be able to do it, and not just do it for a year or 2 years, but to come and to thrive in our spaces that we've created in sports.
For sure. And I think that's a great segue, just hearing you guys talk about how for you, you look at these opportunities and you see there are people here who are like, wow, I've never, you know, it's everyday life for you guys, but it might be a once in a lifetime opportunity for others. And I think where I want to start the conversation or take a step back is really focusing on your early career journey, how you got there, because I do feel like a lot of times in sports, it feels very aspirational. It feels like, you know, it's a once in a lifetime pipe dream. It's hard to get into. So I really want to make sure that our panelists our attendees are aware of maybe some of the ways that they can do that. So I have some specific questions. We can talk. This is obviously an open dialogue. But in doing research on all of you, I noticed Alexia and Brooklyn, both of you had really impressive internships under your belt prior to starting your careers. And so our focus with Shatter the Ceiling is on internships, because we truly believe that internships are really what make you competitive, and you need experience. I mean, degrees are table stakes at this point. 4-year degrees are table stakes at this point. You need to have experience to get jobs. And so, you know, if you get an opportunity, but you can't afford to take it because it's not paid, then you're in a situation where, you know, what do you do at that point? So I'm very curious in how you feel like those experiences have shaped who you are as professionals. What did they offer to your career overall?
I would say you're exactly right. I think internships are everything, and they're, you know, kind of the ideal way to break into the industry. Touching on, you know, Serena talking about her background in media. As a young girl, like, you know, I love sports. I loved, you know, watching games, but I didn't really think it was possible for me to work in a front office or for me to, you know, work for the NFL. It just wasn't something that crossed my mind. I think, you know, I could have determined that was an opportunity, but just not something that I saw myself doing. So I really always knew that I wanted to be in some form of entertainment. And so, you know, while I was an undergrad, I started targeting, you know, what different entertainment entities can I try to, you know, follow. And that's when I came across Good Morning America, like Alexia mentioned, wanting to maybe intern in production there. And I think, you know, the feedback through interviewing was like, you have no production experience. experience, like you were just really not cut out for this role. But that's when I stumbled upon ESPN being a kind of a conglomerate of ABC. And so again, not really having any sports, background, but besides fandom, really, like I was just, so appreciative and proud that, ESPN was willing to take a chance on me as an intern back when I was a junior in college. And so I think, that was my intro into sports, and I never really looked back. I think, for these women on the panel who know, like they said, being in the industry and being at the events, like it's just such a dynamic industry, and you just have this feeling where you just, you're so awakened, I would say. And so when I started at ESPN, even though I didn't love my role in sales, it was very, very contractual and very, closely working with legal. It wasn't necessarily a fun internship, but just being at the headquarters and being around the people and having lunch and learns with these executives, it just opened my mind to knowing like, this is a space I want to be in, which, everything is a step, towards the next step. And so that was me going back to Ohio State as a senior and doing so much research about entry-level programs that exist in sports. And so, one exists at the NBA, one exists at the NFL, and all these industries have these rotational entry-level programs. And so for me, I just made a promise to myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to see how I can, be a fresh graduate and start my career at one of these sports leagues or teams. And so I just think it's really important to know that, everything's going to lead into the next step. And I didn't have my first internship until I was a junior at Ohio State, but, I would encourage any freshman or sophomore to already be thinking about that, because to your point, definitely Alexis and, Alexia, having had multiple internships, the more you can prepare yourself and arm yourself with experience, I think, the better your chances are for really breaking in.
I'm going to try to keep this brief because I'm very passionate about when it comes to internships. For me, I really wanted to start in sports broadcasting. When I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be an actress. And then I was like, okay, girl, like, let's be a little more realistic. So that's where I came with like, oh, I like sports, I like being on camera. I'm going to do broadcasting, etc. And I'll be very honest with you. My dad was the one who was like, okay, you got to bring more to the table than being a pretty face on camera. So learn how to shoot a camera, learn how to edit, learn how to produce, learn how to write, like come into the room well-rounded, because you are a Black female and it's going to be twice as hard. Like it is the unfortunate reality. And I would say Black men are in the same position, if not even worse, from a standpoint, if you're not an athlete. It's like, okay, well, what are you bringing to the table? So I went into school with that mindset and was like, let me just get whatever opportunity I can. I was reaching out to ask to shadow different places. If they didn't offer internships, I was like, can I just come see what you do on a day-to-day basis? I worked at, so I went to Clemson University undergrad. So I worked with CTV when I first got there as a freshman. ESPNU used to do a program called Campus Connection, where they would have you shoot your own segment and send it in to ESPN. They might put it on camera, on TV. I found out about that and started doing that. I did my first 2 internships after my sophomore year. So I did the local Charlotte station. And then I also worked at Raycom Sports, who at the time owned the ACC sports rights property. So I was like, hey, I want to try all these different things. Let me see. And I always tell students, internships teach you just as much what you don't want to do as they teach you what you do want to do. Because I got in there and I got the experience, and I even worked as a production assistant for ESPN College Game Day when they would come to Clemson. And I was literally running errands, getting coffee, etc. But it exposed me to the production truck and how they like put the entire thing on, and just gave me a behind the scenes look. And I got in there and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to work in production. This is not for me. And from there, I was able to pivot. Luckily, Clemson, I was a comm studies major. So I didn't have to actually completely change my major, but it was like, okay, I have all this experience here now. I know I don't want to do this. How do I bridge the gap? And that's how I found PR, because I looked at public relations as a way of understanding what the media wants, and then being that bridge between the media and the actual brand. So whether that's an athlete, that's an organization, whatever, I was like, okay, so I still can bring something to the table. And then I was able to get a connection to the guy who at the time was an SVP of communications at Washington. And he will tell you I harassed him every day. I didn't, but I would call him, email, text. We're in the middle of the season. Follow up with me next week. Great. Followed up with him next week. He might not answer. Waited another week. I called him again. Like, to the point that he jokes, like that's one of my mentors now, but he jokes that I just like I harassed myself into an internship, but it also showed him that I was going to take initiative, because if you're going to tell me that I can call you in the next week, I'm going to call you the next week because I might catch you on a great day. And that is how I got even that. And from there, I learned about, you know, when you think about an NFL organization, there's a lot of different layers to it. They have spring interns, they have summer interns, they have full season interns, they have game day interns. So that is how I learned even to get on with like Atlanta. I was not getting paid to be an intern there. I would drive down to Atlanta from Clemson every Sunday that they had a home game, work for 5 hours and drive back. It is unfortunate that a lot of the internships in the sports industry are unpaid. It is a very sad reality. Like, I will keep it real. When I was doing the Washington internship, it was not paid that summer. By the grace of God, I had an aunt that lived in Ashburn, Virginia, of all places in America. And I could get there, live with her, and get there in 10 minutes. So it worked out from a blessing, all of the like things aligning. Had that not been the case, I don't know if I would have had it. So I can't even attribute that to myself. I have to attribute that to the Lord, and I'm very spiritual, but like there's no other way. Even if I would have known somebody in DC, like that commute would have been over an hour, gas, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it would have worked. So it lined up, but there are things that you can do on campus that can give you the experience that you're looking to and make you a better candidate for internships outside of when you actually get outside of your school. I actually did the hiring for all of our interns when I was hired at Washington as the corporate communications manager. So spring, fall, summer, and game day and training camp, I hired all of our interns. And that was the biggest thing that I would tell people. I'm like, okay, yes, unfortunately, people are going to put, yeah, I want all this experience, knowing good and well that the pool that they're looking for is undergraduate students. But what I always looked at resumes was who took advantage of the opportunities they had on campus. Again, could you shadow someone? Could you just go sit there? Could you volunteer your time? They're not paying you, nothing like that. But you know what? This is how you build relationships. This is how you show like, I really want this and I really want an opportunity. And that's who I would hire in those internship roles. It wasn't about, hey, do you have 5 years of experience? But if you really want to do this, you would find something on campus that could translate into the career that eventually you think you want to get into. And so that is why I think for me, and what I like to tell people is I put the stress on it, because you don't have to have the most money. You don't have to come from a lucrative background. You don't even have to know what you're doing. But if this is something that you're very serious about, reach out to people. You would be surprised at the amount of professionals that will pick up a phone, schedule a call with you, coffee with you, lunch with you to talk about themselves. You would actually be shocked. When I was an intern, at one point I thought I wanted to be an agent. I do not. Thank God I did not. But I actually called probably 20 to 30 Black agents in the DC area. And I think like 3 got back to me. And I sat down with those 3. And one of them, he was an agent that was working in a law firm. And we had a very candid conversation. He took like 30 minutes of his day to let me come by. We didn't even have lunch. I just came to speak with him. And I was like, this is what I want to get into. This is what I'm thinking, da, da, da. And he was like, if you're going to go to law school, I feel like you should go. If you want to like be a lawyer or be in litigation or work in a firm, you don't necessarily have to put yourself through, one, the level of stress, but that debt to become an agent, because what you're doing as an agent is looking at contracts. Most of them are already pretty standardized in the first place. So it's not like you're having to write them from scratch, which they'll teach you to do in law school. I really feel like I could have done the same thing had I gone and got my MBA. Best piece of advice I ever got. I was like, great, I just took the LSAT, I bombed it. I'm not trying to do that again. I'm gonna look at something else. So reach out to people, go on LinkedIn. Like, we are all busy. We all have a lot going on our schedules, but the students that reach out to me that I'm like, hey, if you don't hear from me, follow up, send me another email. Like, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I just might have a lot on my plate. Those are the ones who get a conversation with me on the phone and hey, articulate what you want to do. I think I want to go into this. This is the experience I have for it. This is what I'm looking forward to doing. You know, I'd love to learn more about blah, blah, blah. Great. So now when I hear about things from people in my network, I already know that Alexis wants to work in marketing and she's had this experience. And oh, this person is looking for a marketing coordinator. How about this is a student I talked to. I don't know much about them. They seem very sharp. Please consider them as a hire. I've done that plenty of times just because someone's been able to say, this is what I want to do. And they could articulate that well. So you have to learn to, like, we talk about it and we joke about it, but you have to shoot your shot because something's going to land. You'll be able to talk to somebody that can help you, or you get an experience that, again, is teaching you, like, you know what, I really thought I wanted to work in marketing and I do not. So how do I now pivot? And that serves you a lot more. So any opportunity that you could take advantage of, do it. If it doesn't work out from a financial reason, you got to look at that as like God saying, all right now, like because there are ways that things can align when that is a place that you want to be. And again, it really is an unfortunate like reality. But even like kind of my testimony, like I have no idea why my aunt was living in Ashburn, Virginia. Okay. Like it is not a fun place to be. It is outside of DC.
God wanted that. He worked it out. He worked it out.
Exactly. It worked out.
That speaks a lot to, I mean, as we're talking, I think there were so many gems in what you just said. Number one, persistence, not being afraid to not actually harass people, but not being afraid to follow up. And I think sometimes we'll get into imposter syndrome and all of that and how that can affect us and how we show up. But being persistent, I think also realizing, I mean, I did research on you, Alexia, so I know that you're from Fort Mill. Yeah. Brooklyn, I know that you're from Canton. Like you're not, you neither of you are from like super large metropolitan areas. So it's not necessarily like you just kind of came out of school and had all of these connections and everyone was blowing up your phone. Like, oh, I got an internship for you. You really had to go out and get it. And you created opportunities with what you had at your disposal. So I think I'm going out of order now because Alexia, you touched on something really important about articulating what you want. And I think that's really clear because I feel like people can't help you if they don't know what you want. And Lacey, in your episode with Tim, you talked a lot about how you're really clear about what it is you want, what you can do for organizations and how they can benefit from you. You're clear on your value prop. You know what that is. You know what you bring to the table. So for some of the listeners who might be a little bit earlier in their careers, haven't necessarily developed that level of clarity, how did you get to that point where you knew exactly what you brought to the table and you felt comfortable articulating that?
I think I've always known that like I just had something special, but to be very candid, like there's a lot of people who believed in me before I ever believed in myself. I had some amazing champions. Like I remember when I was 15 and one of my mom's friends like let me take his Escalade and drive it. Mind you, I like was the worst. I'm still a terrible driver. Can't park, like it's really bad. But I was like, why did you let me do it? He's like, because you have this aura about you. Like, I know you're not going to do anything wrong. I was like, okay. And so like, that's always stuck with me. And I had someone when I was 23, 24, maybe, she checked me. I mean, she was like, you don't have to wear your accomplishments on your sleeve. You don't have to tell people how good you are. And I was like the only woman coach on my staff, one of the few in the athletic department. I was 2 years into my career and I felt like I needed to always like carry those accomplishments of what I was doing. And then I just realized, and even now, like I've had my PhD for 6-7 years. Like I don't require people to call me doctor. I'm not code switching for anybody. Like I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not going to change that for anybody, regardless of what room I'm in. And if that means that they don't want me in that room, then that's okay. That's a God thing. And he wants me in another room and he's going to pull me exactly into the places that I'm supposed to be in. But I think it's important to find the champions, to find your truth tellers. But you also have to do a lot of introspection as well. Like I am very, very reflective of everything that I do. I keep a win list because sometimes I need to remind myself that I am the shit and I got it together. I have done these things. And I know that's like part of the whole like imposter syndrome thing. But at the same time, like your actions also they speak louder than your voice will. So you have to put in the work. And I think that like if you're continuously doing that, you putting in the work, people are seeing that work, and then your voice, your digital footprint, all of that other stuff matches as well. Like your values, they become clear to people without you having to showcase them as well. But it's the consistency. And that's a piece that a lot of folks miss. It's like, oh, these are my values. I'm going to tell you. But like, are you really living them? Like, is what you just posted, did that live up to that? Like, is what you're saying in the meeting, did that resonate with those same things? But it takes time. Like I've always believed in we over me. I mean, since I was a little girl on every team, like it didn't matter if I was a sixth man, I was on the bench and was the captain of the team but didn't start. Like I was okay with that. And I knew and I understood my role. So you have to know who you are. You have to be comfortable in that. But you also have to find those people who are going to surround you with those positive thoughts, but also are going to be your truth tellers, and they're going to check you and get you back in line when you need to as well.
For sure. And I think it's interesting because I think you're right. You don't always have to wear your accomplishments on your sleeve. And sometimes people, you don't always have to prove yourself, but sometimes you do. And so I know both you and Dr. Baker mentioned on her episode, like sometimes people will try, sometimes you do have to pull out that doctor card, and sometimes you do have to showcase your accomplishments. So can you talk a little bit about the difference or how in certain situations when you've had to, where people have tried you, and how you've had to, you've had to share your accomplishments?
Was that one at me or Dr. Baker?
Either.
Oh,
okay.
Either. Okay. I sat in a senior leadership meeting, and I was not in there like on a regular basis. I would come like once a month, just based off of some other responsibilities and things that I had. And we had Leonard Moore, actually, from the Black Student Athlete Summit, who came in and he was doing some work with our team. And so I think I was one of 3 Black faces at the table, the only Black woman, one of the youngest in the room. And we're talking about like really just like what your background is. And so everyone's coming around, they're like, oh, I'm from this town, this, that, and other. And it's very like generic, whitewashed, essentially like privilege, very entitled, not realizing that they're saying that. And then I'm telling them like, like where I'm from. And I said, but at the end of the day, like I'm the most educated person in this room. And there's a lot of you all that don't realize that, because I don't carry that and wear that as a title, but do understand that I know when I walk in this room that I am. And if I need to have you address me as doctor, then that's where we're going to move forward with. But if not, like if you can understand what I'm bringing to the table without me having to do this, I don't have a problem, not checking you in the same regard. And I think like I gained a lot of folks. It was a lot of people who were taken aback, but at the same time, like when I walked out, there were a lot of women that were like, oh my gosh, like I'm just like, I've been admiring you from afar and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't have to admire me from afar. Like I'm a good person right here together. Like, but we got to do this together, and you don't have to like be my silent cheerleader. It would be nice if you would amplify my voice.
Absolutely. I know I did have a question on our list about the importance of going back to grad school. Alexia, I know you made the decision to go back to grad school. Dr. Lacey and Dr. Baker, you guys both have PhDs. Can either of you, all of you, talk a little bit about the role of higher education in sports or higher degrees in sports? Do you feel like it's necessary at this point, or are you advocates of it?
So I'll jump in because I want to address or add to your previous question about how I expect people to address me. So I have a couple of different perspectives about it. One, getting a PhD obviously is not easy. It's a lot of work. Everybody's experiences are a little bit different. And so I firmly believe that I will address anyone in the way that they want to. So there are times where I do expect to be addressed as doctor, and being someone who works in the athletics department on a college campus, if I am in a room with faculty and everybody in the room is doctor and they call me Ashley, I always correct. And being in a space where higher education, we do assign those titles, right? And many of us have probably had faculty who are like, just call me by my first name or things like that. So I one piece is I always read the room, because as you know, as we say, like, you're not going to try me. We're not going to act like I'm not in here with this terminal degree and have not done the work to get here and have the education to contribute in a positive way. But I'm not going to throw it in your face, because this isn't about being better or anything. We've worked very hard for what we have. So there's a level of respect that I think should exist for people who achieve certain things academically, but not entitlement, not, you know, this forced piece. One of the things, and I'll jump into the second part of the question. Those who know me, so I have a custom cardigan at every school that I work at. And I'll get whatever neutral colors. I get a gray, a black, whatever. I normally put the school letters on one side and I put Dr. A. Baker on the other side. I wear sweaters all the time anyways, but I always have my sweaters that work with me. I wear them to various meetings and things like that. And my running joke is sometimes I got to pull my cardigan over and close it a little so you can read my name right here, because sometimes people forget who I am in a room, and I do have to remind them. And instead of me verbally doing it, I just go ahead and let them look at my, you know, left chest here, and you read it, and you know, and we can, you know, move forward. But that is extremely important for me. In particular, I had one experience in my career when I received my PhD. Y'all don't go be doing the math and trying to figure out where I was, but I had my boss at the time told our staff they didn't have to call me Dr. Baker, because we don't do that around here. We don't, like, it's not that, you know, big of a deal. And that crushed me. Like I was grown. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, why would you tell them that? I can tell them, you know? And so from that point, it actually created for me, it made me more aware of how I would interact and address and correct in the spaces that I was in, because I get to determine how you address me, not you. And so that's kind of one of my things. But to quickly address your question, for me, getting my PhD, and I know Lacey said this in her podcast recording too, this was about, one, I'm a learner. I love learning. I love being in a classroom. There were things I wanted to learn about the intersection of race and gender in sport that I just couldn't simply do while I was working full time and doing some of the things that I was doing in my career. And I had an opportunity to work under an amazing professor, Dr. Billy Hawkins, who wrote The New Plantation and has a whole bunch of research on race and sport. And I wanted to learn about it and just step away from this industry to get a better understanding. But the second reason was, I was never going to let someone say, and I never will let someone say, I don't meet the qualifications. Like, if you're going to tell me no, it's going to be maybe because you just don't like me, but you won't say I don't have the education or the degrees. You won't say I don't have the experience. You won't say I didn't do my homework about, you know, what the position is. You won't say I didn't represent myself well. You're just going to have to flat out not like me. And I'm okay with that, because, you know, as some of the other panelists said, sometimes that's not the room I'm meant to be in anyways, and I'm okay with that. So I know I could still do the work that I do without a PhD. We are in a point in this industry where, you know, master's degrees are a lot of times preferred, and sometimes that sets people apart. I think that's why some of us do the work that we do in human resources, because I need some of us to understand that those degrees don't always mean the things that we think they do, because people bring other things to the table. And there's so many factors that go into why someone can and does accomplish certain things academically. And so I don't ever want us to solely be dependent on that. But for me, the education that I was able to sort of accumulate, the world perspective, the knowledge, the studying that I did, I believe has 100% made me a better person and equipped me to speak up in the rooms that I'm in, to challenge the rooms that I'm in. And similar to Lacey, like, I'm the smartest one in the room, y'all, but y'all can keep talking. And I'm going to listen, but I'm going to be able to contribute because I know I've equipped myself before I even came in this room. So that's kind of what the purpose of my education was, and what it's meant to me contributing in my career and navigating my career.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I think that makes perfect sense. I'm interested, Alexia, as well, in your thoughts, knowing that you went back to get your MBA.
Yes. So I would say for me, it was a little bit different. As I've mentioned, I was a communication studies undergrad major. And at one point I was going back to get my sports management degree. When I graduated from Clemson, I was like, oh, I'm not going to work. I'm just going to keep going. I got the NCAA opportunity. I deferred grad school for a year. And then the girl whose position I was hired for at Washington had been through the same sports industry management program that I was going to go to at Georgetown. And she and I had a very candid conversation. And she was like, look, if you're going to go for a sports management degree, a lot of times that is for the students that don't have the internships or the experience in undergrad, because it gives you a built-in network. A lot of the professors work in the sport, has worked in the sports industry, some of the alumni, et cetera. So it's kind of that next step that gets you more information, but you can basically like advance within sports. If you're going to go back to school, it would be, you need to go for something that's going to fit into the bigger picture and like what you want to do. Because for sports industry management, you'd be getting a job that you currently have, if that makes sense. I feel like my thoughts are all over the place. So needless to say, I started working and I was like, okay, great. I'm in here. It was very demanding. I started traveling with the team. Did not have a day off for 8 months. Got the job at Magic Johnson Enterprises. Same thing. But Mr. Johnson at this point has transcended sports. So he is part owner of the LA Dodgers, part owner of LAFC, which is an MLS organization out in Los Angeles, the Sparks, Team Liquid, which is the esports franchise. He has a food and facility service management company, a life insurance and annuities company, an infrastructure fund. Like at this point, he's an athlete, but like most of us never saw him play. So he is truly like a businessman to this generation. So as I started working on some of those projects more heavily, I felt like the degree and getting an MBA was going to set me apart, because I was getting into these rooms and I didn't 100% know what they were talking about, because I didn't do like the finance. I didn't have accounting classes when I was in undergrad. Like mine was very kind of tailored, and I didn't really do general business courses. So it gave me a baseline understanding of this is how business works functionally at every level. And I am really glad, one, because I now work very heavily on the business development side with our president, from vetting, researching, the actual negotiation. When it's done, I'm usually the one executing. So like that has just helped, even from like a contract reading perspective. But it also, I think for me, allowed me to kind of feed into, I like to learn. I want to get better. I want to expand my skill set. But if I eventually want to run my own business, which was really the goal for a long time, and it's not the goal anymore, but it's changed because my concentration was entrepreneurship when I was there. So I really had to we had to come up with an idea, and from concept to if we actually were going to have the capital to start it, had to go through all of that process through my classes. And it was like, okay, this is different than what I thought it would be, right? So it really gave me that experience. I was able to meet a lot of people. I feel like now when I walk into those rooms and I am a part of those conversations, I really know like what I'm talking about. I have a better base knowledge. And I'm really glad that I waited to start working and then do it, because it gave me real life examples to be able to take to the classroom that made the actual curriculum easier, because I was able to be like, oh, I remember when, XYZ happened in Washington. Okay, like this is kind of how it applies. All right, this all makes sense. I don't think that it is a bad thing to go and get your MBA straight from undergrad by any means. I actually had a gentleman at the UCLA program, a Black guy. He was running all of their entertainment and sports media as part of the business school. And he really was trying to convince me to like stop working and go back to school full time. But for what I want to do, I'm like, I can build my network and get the experience working where I am. Also, it's Los Angeles. So like, why would I not work?
I think all of you guys bring up great points, and it's interesting that each of you, I know Dr. Baker and Dr. Lacey, you all are somewhat similar in your reasons for wanting to go back, so that no one could tell you that you didn't have the qualifications or the experience. But Alexia, I love the distinction that you made in that if I go to school for this, it's going to set me up for the job that I have. So maybe it's not necessary if I'm going to go to school for something in that regard, but rather going to school for an MBA would set me up for, where I'm trying to go. And I think thinking critically about that and being strategic in those decisions is really important, especially when you're shelling out God knows how much money to get a higher degree. Okay, so I want to take a step back because I know I'm all over the question board at this point, but I think there have been so many just gems and pockets and things that I wanted to double down on, but I want to go back to mentorship and allyship really quickly. Because Brooklyn, in your episode, you talked a lot about the role of having mentors. Alexia, you mentioned how a previous boss, actually, I guess he was your boss at the time, he advocated for you to get the job that you have now with Magic Johnson Enterprises. And I imagine just being a Black woman in sports in general, especially I'm sure in like the academic lens, in different places, can be lonely. So how did you go about finding mentors and allies, and what advice do you have for people who are looking to do the same?
Yeah, I honestly would say, Alexis, I think mentorship for me has been a very organic process. I think people think it has to be this super formal, let me email this person every week. Let me be, super like uppity and formal with it. And I think for me, it's really been identifying people who are doing what I want to do, identifying people who are confident and who are, very, I guess, sure of themselves and just, I guess, very settled into their roles. And for me, just seeing how much I can learn from them and look up to them. And it's been, reaching out, asking for an initial conversation. And then, I think people maybe get a little bit confused sometimes that mentorship only comes from the mentor, but I think it's very much a two-way street. And as a mentee, I need to also be adding value to my mentor's life and their career and whatever they've got going on. So I think for me, in the sports and entertainment industry, there's so many hot shots and there's so many big people that everybody wants to connect with and wants to say that they know. But I think I talked to Tim a lot about this in the podcast that, it's really about reaching outward, right? It doesn't always have to be up. It doesn't always have to be a senior vice president or the CEO that you're chatting with, but, just all the women on this panel, I plan to, follow up after this and remain in contact with them because I'm currently navigating whether or not I want to pursue an MBA and would love to talk to Alexia about what that looks like, being in sports and entertainment, like, is that a right next step for me? And is it the right time? So I think really just being mindful of all the people that are around you. I would attest each one of my successes to a mentor. I don't know how many students are familiar with Management Leadership for Tomorrow. MLT is kind of the acronym there, but I would have never found out about ESPN. I would have never found out about the rotational program at the NFL without programs like this, who I only came across because of mentors who identified potential in me and said, you need to be in this program and you would really stand out in this program. And honestly, like I said earlier, every step leads to the next step. So I think it's about, knowing what you want to do. Alexia also mentioned that you can't be scrambling and be all over the place when you're approaching someone who can really help change your life. So being buttoned up, having that quick little elevator pitch ready to go, knowing that kind of functional role you're hoping to get into. And, you have to learn what you don't like as well. Also, Alexia mentioned that, but I think it's being ready and being confident and stepping out of your comfort zone and say, hey, I really admire you. I see what you're doing. Alexis, to your point, doing research on that person. So when you're coming to the conversation, you know about them, you know about their background, and you're prepared to ask questions. I think that's the most important thing you can do is have very intentional questions ready to go. Don't set up a Zoom and not know anything about that person. And don't have questions that aren't, relative to what they do. So just being comfortable and being confident in yourself and knowing that this person can help you, but you can also help them as you approach a conversation.
I want to piggyback off Brooklyn when she's mentioned, like, you don't always have to go for the vice president or the director. Network with the people that you're in the classes with. These are the people that are going to get jobs at the companies that you want to work at. And I see it happen all the time. The sports industry is large, but it's very small. Everybody ends up knowing everybody. So what happens is, I'll get a resume, and let's say it's for a marketing person, a marketing coordinator, and I'll send it to the marketing department. The first thing the hiring manager is going to do is be like, do y'all know this person? They said they worked for this place. And then somebody might be like, oh my God, I went to school with that girl and she never turned stuff in. She was always late. She was rude to everybody. They remember that stuff. So guess what? Now you're not going to get the job because somebody remembered what you did 10 years ago. So network with the people that you're working with. They obviously not working with in class, but they obviously want to do the same thing as you. And these are the people that are going to end up in the NBA and the NFL and be directors and vice presidents one day. When it comes time for them to have a position open on their team, they're going to think, you know what, Brooklyn, she does marketing. I remember her. Let me hit her up and see if she needs a job. Brooklyn may be looking for a job, and that's how she gets that opportunity. And no, she didn't network with the vice president or director, but she kept up communication, checked in every once in a while with the guy that sat behind her, this sweet girl that she got coffee with every day.
And Serena, a question for you, in knowing that you're the newest to sports in general, what advice do you have? Like, how are you navigating building those relationships? Like, what advice do you have for people who might be new, completely new, or maybe they're just starting their career, to start building those relationships from the ground level?
Yeah, I think it's not trying to jump into things. So I've been talking about this all day with some people I've been interviewing with, but I remember I would get so frustrated at my job because it seemed like they were holding my hand and I'm like, just let me do what I do, please. But I realized it took time for me to learn the business so that I can have an educated conversation. If they had threw me in and if they had given me everything I thought I wanted at that time, I wouldn't have been able to be successful because something would have fallen off. So my advice that I give myself is just make sure that you understand exactly what you want to do and who you need to be working with. I don't want to have a conversation with somebody just to be having a conversation. It needs to be, why am I talking to this person? What am I looking to gain from this person? Do I even sound smart in the conversation or know what I'm talking about? So once I felt like I knew enough about the industry and I was ready to make that switch to making connections within the sports industry, it was when I had knowledge and I knew I could, be here with Dr. Ashley and Dr. Lacey and Alexia and Brooklyn. So I had to learn myself. And like you said, like somebody else was saying earlier, do your research. And I had a hard lesson in that before, and make sure you know things about people and making sure that I'm clear on what I'm asking for. Okay, I got time with you, I'm networking with you, but what do I need from you? I think me and you just had a conversation earlier this week, and the person on the phone was like, so what do you want me to do? And I'm like, wow, like literally anything. And honestly, everything me and Alexis asked for, she was just like, okay. And I'm like, wow, like I just see how coming prepared to the table, one, doesn't take away your credibility, two, makes people respect you, and three, people are more likely to help you out and want to be in the network with you, want to be in connection with you when you do, have more knowledge than you would have if you had just started out and didn't do your research or know what you wanted.
For sure. Okay. I know I'm looking at the chat. I think we can probably go ahead and open it up for questions. I think we should probably, I don't want to run out of time before everyone has questions. I think the best way to do it, rather than maybe if everyone raises their hand and we can call on people, or maybe if you throw a question in the chat, or Tim, have you seen any good questions in the chat as we've been talking? I'm sure there are several.
I have a quick question for Alexia for something that she said earlier. Alexia, do you mind explaining the difference between like being annoying and being persistent?
Couldn't take myself off mute. Yes. So I think for me, it was always about pacing out and like time management. So in that particular instance, I had reached out to Tony. We had connected and he's like, oh, now's not a good time. You're going to have to follow up with me a little later. So I was like, okay, I don't want to let 2 months pass because I don't want him not to then pick up the phone and be like, who is this person? But I was like, let me give it a week or 2 weeks, and I just had very gentle touch points. Like I would send an email one time, didn't respond to the email, then I would call him in like 2 weeks. And if he didn't answer, I would leave a voicemail. So it wasn't I didn't want to be annoying from a standpoint of like, you don't have anything else to do, or I'm the most important thing, or you need to prioritize me, if that makes sense. It was more of I don't want to let too much time pass so then you don't remember my name or remember who I am. But I'm going to make sure I give you kind of that space that you're requiring because I know you have a busy schedule. So it's not one, it's hard because there's not one perfect answer, but it's really like, how would you want people to treat you? And it's actually very interesting to now be in a position where people reach out to me or want to speak to me and set up time, because I tell them, and I like to approach it the same way that as a student, I was approaching others. Like, okay, I know you have a lot on your plate. I really would like your time though. And I don't want to fall off. If you're giving me the permission to follow up with you, I'm going to be the kid that follows up, because there's 90% who don't. And even now, it's interesting. I will judge that sometimes. Like if I talk to someone, hey, reach out to me. You have my direct information now. If you don't hear from me, give it about a week, follow up. I really may have missed it. I'm getting a lot of emails all the time, blah, blah. And I'll let them know. There are some students I have never heard from again. And then there are a few that are like, hey, I just want to let you know, I went for this internship. If you know anybody, would love for you to put in, my name. Or, hey, just letting you know, I just got an interview here. Thank you for your words of advice and hopefully I get it. And like, it's not asking for anything. It truly is establishing that relationship. Just want to let you know where I am. So it's a delicate balance that you have to strike. But I think I can't remember if you actually put it in the chat, Serena, or somebody else like said it, but it has to be a two-way street too. Don't just call people asking for something. Like give them something. Hey, this is what I'm trying to do, or hey, I just saw that you got this honor. Like, congratulations, well deserved. Or, I saw that there's the 49ers made a great acquisition. Like, good luck to the organization. It's those kind of things that make people want to do things for you, and want to pick up the phone instead of, hey, you called me every day this week. All right, now, like, I got some other stuff going on. I sent you a text. I told you I couldn't get to it right now. Follow up with me later.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think a lot of people don't understand when you're reaching out and shooting your shot, please at minimum say hello. Like people will message me on LinkedIn. I'm looking for a job. What y'all got? And I'm like, hi, how are you? I hope your day is going well. Thank you for asking. Mine is going well as well. If you could check, like, you didn't even say hello. You didn't even, I know you don't care if my day is good, but you didn't even act like you cared if it was good. I don't want to respond to that. Or, they'll message me and they'll be like, what jobs do y'all have? Did you check the website? Like, don't ask, if you're shooting your shot or reaching out to somebody, don't ask anybody a question that you could figure out yourself or that was simply Googleable. And always say hello, thank you, and goodbye.
I would also even before we jump into questions, to piggyback off of that, I cannot tell you how many students I get. Hey, like I read your bio or I saw your LinkedIn and I'd love to learn how you got to where you are today. All right, give me something a little bit more. Like if I'm going to schedule 30 minutes, an hour out of my time, like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm from this school. I'm really trying to get into XYZ. I saw that you had this experience, would love to jump on the phone or have the opportunity to connect. Like, give me a little bit more, because there's a lot of people that's like, your LinkedIn looks cool. Like, can you tell me more about it? I don't have an hour to just walk through everything I've like done. Like, let me know how I can help you. So please, like, make your messages very tailored too. Make them personable. To Serena's point, say hello. Like, my name is this. I am a junior here. Like, I want to work in sports because XYZ. Would you mind taking the time? That's going to get you a response much more than just like a blanket message that I feel like you could have sent to anybody within your LinkedIn network.
And make sure people's names are spelled right. I cannot tell you how many people spell my name wrong. And I'm like, it was right there. And I just saw Micah put in the chat, keep your emails or shooting your shot short and sweet. I don't need to know your full story. Say, hey, tell me what you want, how are we going to make it happen and what I can do for you. And then say goodbye and wish me well. And then that's all I need.
So get to the point, do your research, be resourceful, know what you want. I think that has come through in a lot of different ways. Know what you want and be able to articulate that. Okay, so we're going to jump into questions real quick. I see 3 hands. So the first hand I see going from left to right, Kiana.
Hello, everyone. I hope all is well with you. I am Kiana Banks, a rising senior at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, majoring in biochemistry. And y'all, let's keep it real, right? Like, I just did my senior comprehensive exam yesterday, and I was running around campus getting my graduation application. And so I had to make this call, okay? And how it literally happened, right? Connecting. And so I came across Serena's page. I think it was something, we might be in a group together, and she pretty much posted an opportunity. So I go lurking, blase. I look up her name, find her Twitter. And it was something she posted in her bio. And I remember, I'm like, that's something that reminds me of me. And so when I reached out to her, I'm like, hey, Serena, I'd love to build a table with you. I would love to also learn more about your fighting spirit. And she instantly came with that queen energy, right? Like, she's like, hey, what we doing? I think we set up a call, the next day or like something. She's like, this is my calendar. Like, what's going on? And so a little bit about me. So I did the NFL experience-ship. I also applied to JRP. Charlotte Lorenzen chose me, and I did second rounds, but I didn't see the email for the last round. So like during Combine, me and Kathleen Ikpa, the events manager at NFL, that's my main mentor, main girl, she was like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, they sent you an email, you didn't reply, you telling me you want to be here, what's going on? And so instead of taking it as a loss, right, I was like, well, the HR know me now, so what are we gonna do, right? So I reached out to her, apologized for set up a meeting, and that went from there to look on that NFL Careers website and let me know what you want, right? And I know Brooklyn, you already know how that goes. And so I'm creating a professional sports network. And so Serena was so fast on call with me. Like, she did her research. She's like, I saw your network. I'm doing a scholarship. What do you want? And as we know, it's to be specific with your wants with God. And I just kept praying. I'm like, God, send me a team. I can't do this by myself. Like, the network's at 500. I had to cut it off because it's so much going on. I'm about to graduate. And I'm like, God, I need funding, right? Like, I'm putting people in place of opportunity, but they're getting internships. They don't have a car. They can't get around. Like, how do we make this work? And she's like, I have a scholarship. I want to choose someone from your network. Can we talk? I have this going on. Boom. Shot it to my network. And that's how that happened. So like, anyone on this call, if you're on the level that I'm on, or undergrad or graduate, like, don't give up, make those genuine connections with people. And like, that will literally take you in rooms that you would literally never imagine. So thanks, Serena, for having me on call. And thanks everybody for listening to a little bit about what I do.
Thanks, Kiana.
Thank you, Kiana. Okay, jumping into the next question, Joelle.
Good evening, everyone. I am super excited to be here, and just thank you, ladies and Tim, for setting this up. I wish I had this when I was kind of entering the industry. So I really just appreciate y'all laying out this platform for all the students here. So I know Serena, I know Alexia. I actually interviewed with her a few years ago, and I'm just going to air out all my stuff. But within this industry, I think it is so important that people realize how many people are after the same positions, right? Like, everybody wants to be in sports, and there's only going to be but so many positions. So I would love for you all to talk a little bit about rejection and how you deal with that and how you bounce back from it and how you go to the next opportunity. So yeah.
Joelle, I think that is a great question, and something I very recently, I think we've all been through it, but have very recently had to deal with just as I kind of started my search into the industry for finding a new role. And I think I was able to identify really the area that I wanted to be in, which is marketing, which is new for me, but knew that I loved the NFL and I loved my role, and tried to pursue, a marketing role within the league that unfortunately just didn't really work out. And I was really bummed because I felt like I had so much support internally, and I had been doing so much for this league and for this company, and like kind of, was just upset, transparently, that it didn't work out how I expected it to. But I think for me, I think failure is such an important part of life and really makes everybody stronger. And for me, used it as motivation and kind of used it as ammo to really get out there and see what else was out there outside of the NFL, where I was very, very comfortable and very happy. And so I've recently pivoted to a new role in marketing at TikTok, which is so different for me and it's so creative. But I think had I not experienced that rejection or that failure, I wouldn't have even had the confidence to go see what else was out there, So I think it's embracing those rejections and embracing those failures and learning, and also being really open to understanding what can be improved. I think some people put up this defense and they're so smart and they're so perfect and they work at this company and no one could ever say no to them, but there is always room for progression, right? And that's when you lean on those mentors. And that's when you lean on those, colleagues that you trust and you can confide in, to really see what, skills you need to sharpen and who you need to talk to and what you need to read to make yourself even a more I guess, a more profitable candidate the next time. So I say embrace it, learn from it, but also don't just let it happen and move on. Learn why it potentially happened and talk to people about it, and seek feedback from whoever was the direct person that interviewed with you. You know, I think sometimes it's tough at certain companies. People don't have the time to do it, but as much as you can learn and grasp from that situation will equip you so much more for the next one.
No, I love that. And congrats on your new position.
Thank you very much.
Rejection got me where I am now because I remember my friends moving me to Macon, Georgia, and like 3 months later, Alexis actually came back with my mom to help me move back out because I ended up getting fired from a job because I learned the hard way that I am not a salesperson. So I ended up having to move back to Atlanta, and I went 2 years without a job, and I would apply and apply and apply and apply, talking to recruiters, people not calling me back, not emailing me back. So one day I was like, you know what? I can do this way better than they can. So I literally did it way better than they can. And I always said, I was like, you know, going through what I went through in those 2 years of trying to find a job, I just didn't like how people were treating me. I said, you know, like I said, I could do this better, and I would never ignore anybody, which is why when people do email me and, you know, message me on LinkedIn, I'll always respond or try to respond. You know, I never try to seem annoyed. My biggest key phrase is you're never getting on my nerves when you're looking for a job, because I know how it is. Initially, I had actually applied for the NBA. I wanted to work for the NBA because something Alexia said was a lot of people don't think that they just have to be a professional athlete or a coach or something, and you don't. Like, sports organizations have every single career path that every other company does: accounting, legal, finance, whatever you could name, they have. And the NBA told me no. And I'm like, because I wanted to work there because my nephew loves sports. And I was like, you know what? I want to be able to build a table for him to be able to come to and really build an understanding of the sports industry. If, you know, the pro thing doesn't work out, I want to be able to redirect his path. And let's be honest, nepotism is real. So why not create it for my own family? And I know that that's what he wants to do. NBA, I applied for a recruiter role. They told me no. And I'm like, no, what? So then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start working in sports. And what did I do? I ended up getting a manager title at an amazing organization. And looking back, I'm like, I could have gotten that recruiter role for way less money than, you know, I'm making now. And I'm like, if they had never told me no, I would have probably been working at the NBA. I would have never even known that this opportunity to be remote in the city that I've been wanting to live in for, I don't even know how long. And I'm able to still live my life, but I don't even have to walk on site. Are you joking? Like, I couldn't even make that up. And I think that the position in NBA was, you know, it was in New York and it was on site. So I would have had to move to a state that I just do not like. So, you know, me being redirected for like 3 months, it ended up working out in my favor. And, you know, I'm happier than I could have ever been, and still got to work in sports like I was trying to do.
And I just want to say, Serena has been putting people on. Like, I'm not gonna say I wouldn't be a Delta without her, but she's the one who introduced me to Lex. So like, she definitely started that train at USC for me, but she's been doing this. So I thank you too, sis.
Yeah, anytime I can help, I'm always there to help people. I feel like, you know, I'm not going to be blessed if I don't give out the blessing. So no need to hinder them for myself.
Amen on that. So we have one question from the chat for Ashley and Lacey. Can you talk about your experience with motherhood and raising kids while also working in sports?
Good question.
We don't have enough time for this question.
Right. Are we gonna schedule a whole nother 1 hour?
Right. We need a whole
follow up
other
at this point, because I know we are over the hour mark.
Yeah. It's tough. My situation is has been very unique. My oldest son's father, like, we were both coaches at the same time. And then once like I had the baby, like I actually transitioned out of coaching and moved into like student support. And so like trying to balance those worlds and be a volunteer coach. So traveling, like at 3 weeks old, he was at his first track meet. I mean, he's always been like immersed in sports, what he's known. And then I became a widow at like 32. And it was a single mom and like had to figure it out. It was a lot. I now have 2 kids. I'm remarried. My husband like commutes to the States. We live in Toronto. My mom had to move up here. So like I am like a walking circus. My kids are like screaming in the background. You can't hear them because I have my headphones on. But like this is what we know. I'm a firm believer in you make it work. My mom always says, like, I don't understand like how you do this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I didn't know I had another option. So for me, this is the way that I operate. I love that I get to give them this amazing space to grow up in, to have these amazing men to look up to. I think the athletes end up being better people when the kids are around. And I just take advantage. I take advantage of the space that I'm in. Like, but it's not easy. I won't ever make it seem like it is. I think I'm a pretty dope ass mom, but the shit's hard. And that's that.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo all of that and also say, I have one son. My son he turned 16 next month, and his first steps were on a football field. He was in a carrier on me on the sidelines. And I share that and say that because he's always had to share me with this industry, whether it was me in sport management, sport administration in the classroom, or working. And I have always been very intentional about making sure I am in spaces that understands my priority is my child. And that, like, again, my work is going to get done. But I do actually think, similar to what Lacey said in terms of the interaction with my student athletes and the coaches I worked with, like, they saw me as a human. They knew I was somebody's mama. And my son was there, the things he's been able to experience being on a college campus his whole life, and being able to experience things. But I had a village of people. I will never take credit for anything. A lot of people say I've made it look easy. It's not. I've had friends, my student athletes used to babysit my kid for me, like walk him to the bus stop, all these things. But it really centered on, I made sure that I always was true to what my priorities were and still showed up and did a great job in my work, so that people understood when Ashley or Dr. Baker, whoever comes in, that holistically, this is who she is. So Reese, who's my son, I see Lacey posted, like, he would be sitting in study hall doing homework after school, or being at programs and events, again, being at sports. Like, I would always tell my bosses, if you want me to be here all the time, like, we a package deal. And he learned how to navigate and be in those spaces. But that was a part of humanizing who I am and who we are in this industry as women, as mothers, as employees.
I love that. And I love, Lacey, how you said in the chat, work-family integration, because I think we talk a lot about work-life balance, but it's definitely more of an integration. Okay, so I know we are over. I don't know how much time. Tim, keep me honest on time, if we have time for one more question or not.
You got time for two more questions of people that got their hand raised, and then we'll close it up.
Okay, perfect. Before we jump into those questions, I want to do a quick plug, just to remind everyone that we have the grant available. If you haven't applied yet, go ahead and apply. I'm sure Tim has dropped the link to do so in the chat. If he has not, you can find it on any of our social media sites. It's a great resource. Please, apply. Okay, so I'm gonna shut up and go to these next questions. Lexis.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Lexis. I am getting my master's degree in sport management from the University of San Francisco. So I'm living in Long Beach, California, and then I'm going to their Orange County campus. And something that's come up a lot, even within grad school, or just talking with different people in the industry, is burnout. So I'm wondering how you guys have either experienced it or how have you combated that? Because it scares me, honestly, but.
I'll jump in and say, I think you have to learn how to prioritize what is important to you, and that no is a full sentence. It does not get easier. I feel like I'm doing 7 jobs in one right now. And there are times that, like, I come home and it messes up the aura of my home until I've had to realize, like, this is supposed to be a place of peace. So I'm gonna put the phone down. I'm not gonna answer right now. And we're gonna try it again in the morning. Or I might scroll through. I'm gonna see what we got going on. Okay, cool. That's not important. They'll get a response in the morning. I'd be very curious to see how my other fellow panelists answer this, because I don't think there's a perfect answer. I like to say work-life harmony, because if your work is good, then it'll help make life a little easier. If life is going well, it'll help make work a little easier. But it's like a teetering back and forth. I don't think, or at least I have not found like a perfect balance. It's let me not let one area disturb the other, but keeping it, peaceful, grounded, so it helps amplify the other, if that makes sense. COVID was really hard, to the point that I had to actually say, like, I am only responding during working hours, because I got into a habit of waking up and starting to answer emails and then staying on, being disconnected while I'm eating, not giving, my fiance the attention, or if I'm talking to somebody, just being distracted. So, even to be the big boss, you're still going to have to deal with a lot on your plate. I would say across the sports industry, like even looking at it from owner down all the way down. But you have to learn what's important to me. Like, I want to make time to have lunches with friends. I want to make time to X, Y, and Z. And sometimes that's not possible. Like I said, there was 8-month stretch where I worked every day because I was traveling with the team and we had home games, on top of the fact we had Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night, and I had to be back at the stadium at 8 a.m. after getting home at 4. So like, there are just going to be periods that it is not going to seem like you're in balance. But when you get that time off in the off season, if you're with the organization, or, you work with the individual, or, there are ebbs and flows and seasons, luckily, at least to some degree in the sports industry, take that time and use your PTO, all of it. Don't let it roll over. Don't let it pay out. Use all of it. Like, at every given time. The one thing that people can say about me, Alexia vacations. Okay. Like, one thing I'm going to do is take a vacation. So you got to prioritize some of that. But I don't, and again, and we've heard even from the mothers on the panelists too, like, it's going to be a lot on your plate, whether you add school, whether you add motherhood, whether you add a relationship, whether you prioritize family. You just got to really figure out what's going to be, like, what's the balance for you. And when you have your time, take it.
And to add to that, even during the workday, I live in Houston, Texas, which is Central Standard Time. I work on Pacific Standard Time. My lunchtime is their morning time. And that's when they're like hot and ready, hitting me on emails. I had to learn, and I messed up this past week. I got rid of my lunch, and I always block my calendar every single day from 12 to 1:30. Don't bother me. If I choose to work, then I'm gonna work. But 9 times out of 10, I'm sitting on the couch, relaxing. The nature of my job is I'm talking to people. And when I'm talking to people, I have to be on and entertaining and convince them. And I can only do so much. So I got to take that break in the middle of the day to just breathe, eat, play with my dog, take them on a walk, go check the mail, just get on Instagram for a minute, just to disconnect. And I didn't do that for the past 2 weeks. And I'm like, wow, I haven't had dinner and it's 5 o'clock. Burnout. I gave myself burnout because I was willing to give up my time that I have every single day for the business, which I wasn't gonna get fired if I didn't make those calls that I planned during that time. And I never should have done that. And you have one time to let people know they can put something on your calendar during a block, and they're gonna keep doing it. Because now they're like, oh, Serena, she gives up her lunch if she needs to. I messed that up. So now people try to put a block on my calendar during my lunch, and I have to, I have to eat that time. We can reschedule it, decline, tentative, please propose a new time. So make sure you make those blocks, whether they're for an hour and a half like me or 15 minutes a day, just to breathe, get away, get your mind right, cry if you need to, whatever, then go back to work.
Set your boundaries. Okay, Michaela, I know you've had your hand up for a while, so I'm gonna go to you.
Okay, hi, I'm Michaela. I'm currently a sophomore at Indiana University. And this question is geared towards something that Alexia had said about like getting your master's degree in sports management. And she was saying how like networking, for people who didn't have good networking in undergrad, that's why they geared towards that master's degree. And I was just curious, for me, like being undergrad, like I don't know if I'm doing enough right now or if I should be doing more. So I'm just curious as to like what you guys think like is good networking or like good experience for your undergrad.
I don't think that there is an answer on how much is enough, to be honest with you. It's about, like, for me, I started really early. Brooklyn, she got her first internship after junior year, and like, look at where she is now. So what's for you is not going to miss you, and like your path is going to be very unique to you. But what I will say is, while you're there, and again, going back to being very clear about what you want to do and where you're looking to go, find those people on campus that can help you get there. Find those organizations that would feed into that. If you want to go into sports broadcasting, do you have a school TV station? If you want to be an editor, most schools that are in the Big Five conference, including Indiana, they're going to have like a sports video department. It's looking at, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Let me find and identify the people on campus that are doing it, reach out to them, pick their brain, see if they have opportunities, and kind of go from there. When I said it's for those that may not necessarily have the network in undergrad, it's more from like, if you have not done any internships where you remotely touched kind of the sports industry, that makes a sports management degree very beneficial to you. Even if you've had one or two, if you're looking for positions when you get out and it may not be, you're not necessarily finding them, etc., that still may be beneficial because they just have that built-in alumni network and network with their professors. But, this isn't answering your question, but there's no right answer to how much is enough. It's really, okay, what do I want to do and how can I get in front of these people while I'm a student? Because people are way more willing to help students than adults or other ones that they think should be their colleagues or, working within the field. So take every advantage while you're in school. And if you're like, okay, I know I want to do this and I haven't had any experience that even remotely relates, because sometimes it's getting an internship at a PR firm that may not focus on sports, but you're still doing PR. So now you can just apply that skill set to a sports organization. If you don't have those, that's where I think the sports management degree is really handy.
Thank you, Alexia. And then I'm going to go to Katiana. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, for our last question for the evening.
Yes. Hello. I apologize for not being able to show my face. My camera's broken at the moment, but good evening, ladies. So my name is Katiana, and I am a track athlete at the University of Maryland. I'm a senior, so I will be graduating in a couple of months. I applied for the graduate program here for journalism, but unfortunately, I was denied. And I also applied for an MBA summer internship and I got rejected. My dream has always been to work for the MBA as a social media manager or as a sideline reporter. The reason why I've been pursuing journalism was because I've enjoyed the art of connecting and interacting with others, but I also have a deep passion for sports. So I wanted to find a way to connect these two things together. However, getting denied kind of discouraged me from continuing in that path, but I don't want to give up yet because this is something that I've always been passionate about. So my question to any one of you ladies is, how do you stay motivated, and what is some advice that you can give me on securing the right internship and just getting the right opportunity?
I would love to dive in here just because this is such an important topic that I would love to urge to all of you. I think, and I want to say it right, Katiana, how do I say it? I want to say your name right.
Katiana.
Okay. I would say this is such a great example, and I'm proud of you for being willing to share your experience and your journey. I think there are so many ways, Katiana, to get into sports that are not at the leagues or the teams, right? So I was in sponsorship with the NFL. So I work with so many of our Fortune 500 clients, like Gatorade or Bose or Subway or Invisalign. And there are so many sports marketing internships or in sports sponsorship internships at these other companies. So I think I hear a lot of students talking about wanting to only be at the NBA or the NFL or the MLB or the NHL, but there are so many adjacent roles where you can get the right experience, where you can meet the right people, you can get in the door that are adjacent to sports, but they are directly, connected to the sports industry. So I would say really make sure that you're exhausting those companies as well who directly, present or support different leagues that are not necessarily at the league, or they support teams. So all the different sponsors for teams like the Toronto Raptors or like the 49ers, look into those avenues as well, because you can get to where you want to go without directly starting at a league or at a team. That'd be my advice. And then motivation, I guess it just really, it can be tough. And after rejection, you don't always feel like you want to keep going. But I think it's just knowing the end goal, right? And there's so many phenomenal women here that I'm looking up to and want to hopefully be in a position like them one day. And I think that is what keeps me motivated, is seeing that they were able to do it and saying, Brooklyn, what do you have to be doing right now in April in 2022 to get to where Dr. Baker is, like really telling myself that there's so much more to what's going on right now, so really thinking about that end goal, and then making sure that you're exhausting opportunities outside of those leagues and just clubs.
Ways I stay motivated. I don't let anybody tell me what I can't do. So yeah, you've been getting rejected, but that's just two people. There's like 7 billion people in this world, and there's how many NBA teams and college teams and NFL teams. There's so many other people that will not tell you no. So people telling me no, I'm like, okay, you said no, but you don't control the plan for my life. Like, I can still get this opportunity. So just don't let it get you down. I mean, let it motivate you. Remember, I told you I got told no by the NBA and ended up getting something better. So there might be a reason why, or it might just be something that you have to think about. Like if you're so dead set on a certain place, you might ignore everything else that's coming around you because you said what you wanted to do, but have you checked the 49ers website to know we have some of the things that you want to do? So you're spending so much time focusing on the NBA when there's so many other avenues that have that, those roles that you're looking for. And a lot of times when I'm looking at resumes, having sports experience, I don't care if it's the NBA, MLB, NHL, you've done it at a sports league, you got experience, and then you're more marketable to, the NBA because you have that sports experience. So think about just, taking a seat, writing down your goals and figuring out what are alternative ways to get there.
Thank you for your question, Katiana. Also, I do work, to Brooklyn's point, I work on the brand side of marketing. So we've done marketing with different sports teams. My current employer has a partnership with the Rockets. So it's definitely an avenue. We can chat offline about that, about how to get into sports that way, even though it's more sports adjacent, not actual sports. But I think, first of all, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our attendees, just for showing up and being amazing and being who you are and being willing to share your stories, being transparent. I'm super inspired. Tim, I know Tim has been hiding in the chat, making sure, dropping links to resources. So hopefully you guys have been paying attention. Tim, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything that you want to say before we wrap up for the evening?
Yeah, I would just love for all of our panelists to give their own final thoughts in regards to next steps and their own journey. Last, pieces of advice for those who are still on the call, but then also dropping their contact information on how those who are still on the call can reach out to them to engage in conversation, dialogue, and community building after we close on this evening. So we can start with Serena, Brooklyn, Lacey, Dr. Baker, Dr. Lacey, and then Alexis.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. This is amazing. It's just so great to see what's something that was just a simple concept, like a text message to Tim, just turned into this, and a phone call to Alexis, turned into something greater. And it's been warming my heart to see everybody in the chat. Seeing you guys turn on your cameras, I appreciate that. And then just seeing people be engaged. I mean, honestly, I was going to be happy if even one person showed up, or if nobody showed up, and just being able to talk to the fellow panelists, I was going to be excited. I see some of my coworkers here, so I'm super excited. Some friends that, don't even care about sports, but they came to support me, and I really appreciate that. And one thing that I am going to do, I've been, networking a lot with people in talent acquisition, people in sports. And one thing they've been saying is they don't know where to get diversity candidates. And I'm like, well, I struggle with that too. So there looks to be about, 40 students on the call right now. So Tim is going to drop an email in the chat. And I've been asked by somebody that's advising me that if I can create a resume book, she can get it out to her network as well, so that nobody will ever have an excuse for why they don't have diverse talent. So if you just email your resume to this email, and then just put in the body of the email what type of job you're looking for, I will put together a resume book, and I will be sure to send it out. I'll keep it for myself for 49ers careers, and I'll also send it to my network within the NFL and NCAA and stuff. So hopefully we can get you guys some jobs. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Serena, so much. I would just quickly leave all of you with something that my dad told me, and I think it's important in every aspect of life, but also, for you in this industry, is just to always have integrity. I think Serena talked about it earlier, what a small industry this is. Everybody knows each other. Everyone's going to be able to talk about where they know you from or where they met you at, but just always bringing your authentic self, and always doing the right thing, no matter who's watching you, is going to go so far. So think about that as you move forward in your career.
I think I'm up. I put it in the chat. And wait, am I up? Somebody?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Lacey. Tim,
okay.
Tim went back and forth. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I put in the chat like shoot or shoot. Like you gotta put yourself out there. You have to tell people your dreams. Don't be afraid of that. That's one thing about me, regardless of what position I'm in, I will always have the conversation. I don't care if I'm talking to somebody from the NHL. Look, you might need a little brown girl like me to come up in there and shake things up, and I'm ready to do it, like if that's what the next move is. And I think that like sometimes we get so ingrained in like we have to be in this one little bubble that we don't look outside the box. But most importantly, the most important job that you have is the one you have right now. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do right now, you're not going to get anything else going forward, or the things that you want to get going forward, or there's going to be like setbacks in the process. So like you have to be diligent in the space that you're in. What they say, be faithful in the small things, and you'll reap the harvest of the larger things.
My thoughts are pretty short and straight to the point. I want to make sure each of you that are listening and tuned into this conversation, I need you all to know Black women make this industry better. Don't ever let anybody tell you anything different. You belong in every room your feet set foot in. When you sit, yes, every industry, you're right, every industry, but since we talk about sports, when you have seats at tables, if you're standing in a corner, like wherever you are, when you get into those spaces, you have to know you make those rooms better simply because you have shown up in there and you bring who you are, your expertise, your experience. And this industry as a whole does not always show love to Black women in the way that it should. So when you have the opportunity to do it, you must. And if you don't have people around you that tell you that, get people around you that tell you that. Come to spaces like this, pick up the phone, call, text, but just know, this industry is better because we show up in it, and our ideas and our creativity and our brilliance make it better.
Alexia, did you already go?
I think she
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. I am moving. I'm in New York and I've been running around all freaking day. So I'm not on camera, but I think this has just been very powerful tonight. I am honored to even be in the company of all of these women on this wonderful panel. Y'all are incredible. So thank you for even considering me, Tim. And I would just say for everyone, like, again, the biggest thing, define what you want. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Even kind of one of the questions about the mentorship, allyship, as far as how I got the current job, like, it's because I told my old boss, hey, this is what I want to do. And so because of that, that's how I ended up where I am now. So just articulate it. You don't have to have it all figured out, but have an idea.
Super dope. And Alexis, close us out, my friend. Send us home.
Honestly, what Alexia said is kind of like my life motto. I'm like, I'm going to have the things that I want, and I'm going to do the things that I want to do. And that's just really it. It might not happen when, it might not happen how, but there's nothing that I want that I can't have or that's off limits to me. And I fully believe that.
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining. I'm looking forward to all the LinkedIn ads and emails and stuff. And remember, the people that put their reason, please don't ignore them. Somebody was saying earlier, they pay attention to when you do not respond, when they give you your information, you don't respond. So please use it, know what you're asking for, be respectful, and you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
thank y'all.
Thanks everybody so much. Can't wait to connect with everyone.
Good night.
Bye.